Let's talk about this universal basic income from your side, the 6,000 shilling, and Raila Odinga today and Martha Karua tried to explain how this would work. It's 6,000 shillings given to, again, look at the records, government records from what I had, and give to the
households.
Yeah, to households.
Yeah.
About 142 billion or thereabouts in
44.
a year. 44 billion
Yes.
in a year.
Well calculated.
How will that happen?
How that will happen basically is, you see, if you go to a country that has already done it, and that's how we are going to do it, first you go and identify those households that live below the poverty line. Basically what we are saying, James Mart, you go to Adams Olow's family. There are 4 people in Adams Olow's family, and all the 4 don't work. If all of them don't work, which means they don't have any income, that's the first stage of qualification. In other words, you'll first go and bracket out those who qualify. Let me give you an example by the practical one, which is already there, that you have the cash transfer for the elderly, where you have already decided that the elderly is anybody 70 and above. Once you go and get that 70 and above, then you use the infrastructure of government, the chiefs, the DOs, the county commissioners, and all that. They are able to identify them. And that's how the cash transfer usually go to this elderly. The same shall apply to these households.
So the assumption here is we have this 144 billion.
Yes.
Where's it coming from?
I think the Prime Minister did explain, James Mart, that once we get into office, as we shall on August 9th, the first thing that you do, fighting corruption is long term, but the first thing that you do is that the government usually has a budget, but governments also create supplementary budgets. And we shall look at which are the areas that we feel that are not of priority, so that we give this universal basic income priority, because for Azimio, the livelihoods of Kenya matter, and we shouldn't have other Kenyans able to put bread and butter on the table and others go without a meal.
I think you have asked a good question. I mean, budget is about, revenue versus expenditure. They want to expend $144 billion.
That's in the year.
Yes, 144 billion.
Yeah.
If you have a well thought out program, like Prof is saying here, you should be able to say that these are the sectors we are taken from because they are not priority, and we will pay.
But then I will be doing a supplementary budget,
that
which
they don't have, or they can't show from the current budget, clearly shows how ill thought this is really. I mean, it's a populist program that has, it's poorly thought, like many of the things.
James Mart.
Okay.
You should easily tell us that we are stopping infrastructure, or we are cutting on our foreign missions, we are closing this, or we are reducing from the military and we are bringing here.
I told you, they'll come with a budget statement. Ours is a statement of intent. Once we are in government, we'll have a budget office. We'll have an appropriations committee. We will have a treasury. They'll do it.
So we worry about these problems after?
We have already demonstrated to you that it is doable. Let me give you an example, because me, I like using practicalities. When NAC came out with a manifesto on free primary education, you remember, James Mart, I don't know how old you are.
Yes, 2002.
2002. And it was January, and the kids were going to school. And NAC said, look, we made a promise. If I can just give an example of one school, Olympic Primary School, more than, it was amazing. And when President Kibaki was asked, what do we do? We hadn't prepared for this. President Kibaki, in his philosophy of working nation, said we made a promise, and indeed every kid entered We are not talking slogans. We are talking what has happened before. And you know that that NAC team that made things work is in Azimio. They are not in Kenya Kwanza.
What a poor analogy he gives. What a poor
No,
analogy.
just address my facts.
No, but look at
you,
this.
You can use your cliches, just address my facts.
Look, when he compares 144 billion budget with free primary education, he can't create the correlation between the two because there's none. Free primary education was easy to implement because...
It was not about cost, it was about implementing.
Free primary education was easily to implement because you are telling the parent that's bringing his year to class 1 that you have nothing to pay. Just bring the child. Here, he has 144 billion that he doesn't know where it's coming from.
It will come.
That is the difference. But he can't see. He can't see. He's comparing apples and oranges.
He's missing the point because what I was answering was different.
Yeah.
On the other one, I did answer you about a supplementary budget. So I won't even bother to respond to that.
Let's gentlemen, the question on the economy will always, you know, and this perfect time because it's 41 days to the election and both sides, both sides that actually one of which will walk into office is important to answer this question with clarity. But just a side question on this, what is the question in this election, right? What are Kenyans actually being asked to vote for in this election? Let me start with you, Senior Councillor Ahmednasir.
I think a lot. I think this is a very important election for Kenyans. We are coming from, a transition to a new dispensation, hopefully. There are two candidates with, different backgrounds, different promises, different teams, different manifestos. So I think for Kenyans, I think this is an, epoch-defining elections. Will you put your trust in in the deputy president's team, or will you put your trust in the former prime minister's team? And I think the choices are very clear in terms of what both sides presents.
Prof, what are Kenyans being asked in this election from where you sit?
From where I sit, Kenyans are being asked, who can you trust with the leadership of this country? This country has gone through webs and cycles of success and failure, success and failure. And Kenyans are asking, who can we trust with the real change? And I can tell you, James Mart, the difference is as day and night. James Mart, Kenyans will ask, who can I put my children who are going to school under? Will I put it under a gentleman and a lady who have a track record of empowering children? Or will I put it under two gentlemen whose history, right now, if you drive along Langata Road, there is a signboard. This property belongs to Langata Primary School. Children were tear-gassed there for purposes of private interest. Kenyans will be asking, who can you trust? Kenyans will be asking that at a time that we had the post-election violence, when people were being displaced, a Kenyan's land was annexed at the height of the post-election violence. Kenyans will be asking that if you go to the coast where there are squatters, and it's not clear how 2,500 acres of land was acquired, who can you trust?
I mean, let me just chip in a little bit. You know, you asked that question like it was never asked about the candidates. This question was asked 4 times about the Honorable Prime Minister. I mean, this, as someone who has voted for so many years, like myself or like Professor, this question was asked about the Prime Minister almost 4 times. And every time, the voter has refused to put his trust in the Prime Minister. So this is the, I mean, this is the 5th time that Kenyan voters have been asked. But we have already answered. Majority of us have answered that question 4 times. And I think most of those voters who answered that question 4 times will answer it probably the same way. I don't see why you should change your views about a person you have made up your mind 4 previous times.
But every election is different. But let's deal with the question of what sort of like the 2 tickets and what they represent.
Yes.
Right? The Prof is very clear on what the ticket of Azimio brings. It's a reformist ticket. He spoke about their track record and what Kenyans would have comfort in sort of the kind of 2 individuals who have sort of a similar history. Contrasting that to...
No, before we contrast it, I mean, it's not fair to say that the Prime Minister and Mother Karois Ranamid are reformist candidates. There is no history in terms of their reform credential. Let's not use the word reform as a state of mind, you know, something that's in a person's mind. It's not a state of mind. Reform is, you know, empirical evidence of what they have done. The Prime Minister has been a Minister for Energy. He has been a Minister of Roads. He has been a Prime Minister. The good lady has been Minister of Justice.
Minister for Water.
Minister for Water. What are the reforms they have brought in those sectors or in the broader perspective?
I think this was, to provide context to this.
Reforms is a word that is abused and misused.
You do not think that these 2 candidates or these 2 personalities have had a sort of a history that fought for something in this country? That does not count for anything.
No, I have said many times, and I will repeat, that the history of the former Prime Minister has never been a reform agenda. It has been, you know, it has been a personal pursuit to acquire power. And he has done it in so many ways, right from...
Even when he was getting arrested?
Yes. I mean, yes. It was a quest to get power. It was never about reforming. Every time, if you look at his politics post 97, it was not about reforming the country. It was about increasing his mathematical probability to take power. That distinction must always be made, and it must never be lost.